All right, you're up.
Okay, so we got some snow. You guys see in the mountains. Really good for our water resources. We're going to cover a little bit of the Mojave watershed in the beginning. Then we're going to cover landscapes, surface water, some groundwater rights, the different hydraulic regions in the area with a map. I didn't mean to do that. And then, like I said, I told you guys I'd show you some videos of what heavy flow looks like and what normal rainstorms look like. So we're going to look at that here in just a minute. So we look at our upper watershed. I assume all you guys have been up to Silverwood Lake. So you guys go like the 173, you pass the dam that looks like, why is there a dam there? Because there's no water. And then you go on your way up to Silverwood through the kind of like the windy roads. That is this Lake Arrowhead Road right here. This red line, that is the 173. So Lake Arrowhead Road turns into 173. And you see that big Mojave River Dam. We call it the Mojave River Dam or the Forks Dam. Forks Dam because from Deep Creek and from West Fork, they fork at one spot and they go into the Mojave River. So when we talk about Deep Creek and West Fork, we're talking about two different areas in our upper watershed. Deep Creek comes from Crestline, Lake Arrowhead, discharges from the sanitation department, rain flow from Crestline and Lake Arrowhead, and we're going to see a lot of flow there. In the West Fork, you see a lot of tributaries, which are basically areas where water flow into one channel and then they flow into the main river. Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. What just happened? Yeah, that was...
That's something strange.
Yeah. Oh, here. No, I got it.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll put you back on.
Yeah, go ahead. I think maybe it just got stuck.
Yeah.
Okay, so majority of the flow comes from Deep Creek, but we have Silverwood Lake, and like I said last week, when it rains, most people think Silverwood Lake is just the dam is going to break and it's going to flood the valley. Not the case at all. Working with Department of Water Resources, as that is you can see the State Water California, or the California Aqueduct flow through or into Silverwood Lake and then down into San Bernardino. That is a DWR facility and it generates electricity, so it's also under FERC, which is Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. So that dam is inspected every day, 24 hours a day, video monitor, sensors, everything. In fact, they just closed the dam because people were messing with the riprap, meaning the rocks, like the really heavy boulders on the downstream side of the dam. So you can't get on Cedar Springs Dam right now, from my understanding. So West Fork, Deep Creek, it's going to be our two upper watershed. This is kind of looking, if you were standing up here on this mountain, this would be looking towards the west. So we have, here's the Forks Dam, which you can see Deep Creek coming in from this side. And you have West Fork up on the high side up here, and that's Silverwood Lake right up there. So you can see this comes in from the West Fork, this comes in from Deep Creek. This is a lot steeper. You guys, I've been outside and working with Mojave for so long, people say, oh, do I just take Deep Creek Road to get to the Deep Creek Hot Springs? Those are miles up the creek. So they both intersect at this Forks Dam, which is a U.S. Army Corps of Engineers dam. And this is where I told you the gated flow, you were worried about flooding. This is where that maximum flow of 23,500 CFS. CFS is cubic foot of water, which is, 1 cubic foot if you think about a box. 1 by 1 by 1, it's a cubic foot. 23,500 of those per second can flow through there. And I got some videos to show you under normal rain circumstances and under heavy flow. So here's a diagram. So we've been recording flow data we have two gauges. You always want to measure the gauges kind of at the bottom of the tributaries to see where they're coming from. So with Mojave Water Agency and USGS partner up to take readings from the West Fork gauge, which includes Silverwood Lake, all the drainage that flows into Silverwood Lake, and into Horse Thief Canyon, which is further up the canyon past Silverwood Lake. There's still water that falls in that area, and it's still, let me go back right here. So past Silverwood Lake, so this is Horse Thief Canyon coming in from past Silverwood. And then you have flows from Silverwood when whatever flows in. There's certain agreements between the ranch and Mojave Water Agency and CLAWA, which is Crestline Lake Arrowhead Water Agency. But approximately 2/3 of the flow actually comes from Deep Creek. So when they say, oh, it's raining a lot, the dam is going to break, really, when we look at historical events, there's really only about a third of the flow that comes through the Mojave River comes from the West Fork, which includes Silverwood. So, and when there's a rain event, there's DWR folks camped out at Silverwood. They have huge slide gates and valves that can release more than 10,000 CFS per second. So whatever's flowing in, they judge on whatever the lake level is, and they can release that. So now we're going to show you kind of what does a typical rainstorm look like. Now this won't happen with the snow because we all know snow stays, and we like snow better than rain because it's slow. Here. I actually have it open. So under a normal flow situation, a light rain, this is what you're going to get out of the bottom of the Mojave River Dam. So this is when West Fork and Deep Creek come together. This is low flow. You'll sometimes see people out there. You can see sometimes it's 2 to 3 feet deep and sometimes it's 6 inches deep. You can see kind of the dam in the background, but this is that ungated structure that allows, so just take a reference in how tall that is. I think it's 16 feet tall, the walls, and the bottom is concrete. So it's a concrete structure, ungated, and it's ungated. Yeah, it's ungated. So that's what a typical rainstorm, a light rainstorm will do. Those are kind of light rainstorms we were having in the drought that we were all pumped about. So we'd go out there and look at how much water was flowing in. In 2010, go ahead and play the one on the left. 2010, we had a major storm. So this was 23,500 CFS flowing out of the dam. Same structure, same spot. That is 32 acre feet per second. So if you think about a football field, let's stack a foot of water on a football field and stack it 32 feet high. That's how much is coming out per minute. And then we have another one that kind of shows the velocity. I want you guys to pay attention to the velocity coming out of the center of the cone. On the sides, it's not much. You see how much water is coming out of that? And you can see where I was standing taking the last video, I would have been washed away. So these are the types of floods that restore water levels throughout our entire service area. So not our entire service area, the areas that are directly affected by the Mojave River. So I want to show you guys that to give you economy of scale. You know, the one, all water is good. We like rain. Snow, just got that snow. Snow is going to stay for a while, slowly melt. That'll be a little bit, that's better for the aquifer because it slowly melts rather than that, because that rain, when that flood happened, it actually got to Soda Dry Lake, and we can't use it at that point. It's out of our service area. So, but per our adjudication, if you guys watched the video from Kirby, which if you're in my class, it will be posted later today. I encourage you to watch that. We can't hold back any flow because then it's not fair to downstream users such in Daggett, Newberry, Barstow. So we can't, there's a reason that thing doesn't have a gate on it. If we were Orange County, we were the last downstream user before it hit the ocean, then we could put a gate on it and slowly release it behind the Prado Dam and artificially recharge water throughout the year. So,
now, real quick, can you clarify the Kirby video?
Yes.
It's called, you guys look up on your blackboard, it's in red, it's a guest lecture. We're going to be having guest lectures through this. Some of them are actually going to happen again in here, but some of them are just up there, okay? So it's part of the curriculum, because this is your hybrid part at home, right? Your online part at home.
Yes.
It's called the Mojave Water Story.
Mojave Water Story.
It's got a YouTube video with it.
YouTube video.
And then
just so it's recorded.
Cool. No. And then it's got a PowerPoint, which is also loaded up under Unit 2. Okay.
Yes. So there's go ahead.
Go ahead.
There's a PowerPoint and a presentation from our former general manager, Kirby Brill.
The rest of the week, also know that this week there are 2 other videos.
This week there are 2 other videos.
Water people, Department of Water.
One from Department of Water Resources.
And you need to watch those because they're basically giving you a picture of, for example, the State Water Project that we're going to start talking about today.
Yeah, one about the State Water Project, and then one, I believe, from AWWA.
About drinking
About drinking water, yeah. Today we're not going to dive super deep in the State Water Project. It's going to be more hydraulic regions and kind of showing you what makes California so unique with its mountain ranges, with its deserts, with its how some places can get 50 inches, 40 inches of rain, and how some of the deserts only get 5. So we're going to go through that. Like I said, we're going to go over the geography, the river systems, the lakes, the mountains, what's so important about snowpack reservoirs, kind of touched on that already, wildlife resources. We're going to focus on 9 distinct areas: Sacramento, Tulare Lake, San Joaquin, South Lahontan, South Coast, and Colorado River. Yeah, 8, excuse me. So here's kind of a broad overview of the natural flowing rivers that are in California. You can see we're with the Mojave River. You can see we do not terminate to the ocean. We terminate out into the middle of the desert. So we're not like Santa Ana, where it starts in Big Bear and goes through all throughout San Bernardino and Orange County and terminates in the ocean. But there are some other oceans or other rivers that flow into the delta from up north, and you have the Klamath River and all these fun rivers. So, in fact, this is, I think, the wrong. I added stuff to this. Did you pull this off my PowerPoint?
Yeah, this is the one you had up.
Really? Let me exit real quick because I added stuff to it just for clarification. Yeah, this is it. Okay. Sorry, guys. Okay, so
Also, reference, this is chapter 2.
yeah, this is chapter 2. So I think it's pages 37 to 80 something. So really easy reading. A lot of pictures. If you guys haven't had a chance to read, it's pretty easy. So. If we look back historically over California before people got here, there was large lakes. Even in our area now, we had, there's a Harper Lake Basin that used to be a lake. There used to be a lake out in Lake Mannix and Newberry Springs, and that kind of affects a lot of the geology that's out there right now with the silts and the clays. Even Lucerne, when the mountain ranges hadn't formed yet, weather storms would come in and actually drop rain and form those dry lake beds. There's a dry lake. There was once a lake there. And if that makes sense, you see, same with the Salton Sea. Salton Sea is just a huge version of one of these lakes out here, which we're going to talk about right now, that not only affects water quality, but affects fish species, bird species, and just tourism and economy all around it. So the Owens Lake, that is up in going on up in your way to 395. If you guys ever been to Bishop or Mammoth, you look over, see that big dry lake. That was once a lake before LA Department of Water and Power diverted the flow to that lake and took it to LA in the early 1900s. So that was once a lake. You can see pictures of steamboats going across, people fishing. Now it is kind of a real big controversy because this last snowpack we had last year, the snow melted so fast that it was going to flood the lake. But now they have berms built up so that, because there's thousands of bird species that would come, lay eggs, get fish out of there, and that would be their home beacon. Birds fly in a path to where they know, hey, there's water here, there's water here, there's water here. Well, biologists said, hey, you need to retain some water in that lake so they can come back to that. So next time you're on your way up there, just look over. You'll see it. It's huge. It's a huge lake. I mean, to where they had steamboat engines that you would see like at Lake Mead or something. That's how big that lake was. So if you just do a quick Google search of Owens Lake, you'll see a lot of pictures. Salton Sea, like I said, they have huge issues. Whenever you get into a stagnant lake that doesn't have a lot of water coming in or going out, water density, right? Water gets hot and you get lake turnover, which causes dissolved oxygen issues, and which can just chew up all the oxygen, or you have a lot of bacteria that eat up the carbon, which take oxygen, then rob that from the fish, so you have huge fish die-offs. You also have receding water levels, so the water level in the Salton Sea is dropping. Then you have dust problems. That's the main reason why Owens, Mono Lake is so important. is it Mono or Owens Lake? Yeah, Owens Lake. We'll get to Mono Lake later. Owens Lake is so important because Air Quality Management District at South Coast, which is basically over the hill and basically all of the coast area for LA, has actually found traces of rare earth elements from Owens Lake and from the Salton Sea in their filters. So it's a huge issue for not just fish and wildlife, but also for us because we're breathing in all that dust, even though you don't see it. So you can see receding water lines, and you guys have all probably seen the dry lakes out here. You know that when it gets windy, it just whips all that stuff right up. So, but it is a huge area for birds to come and migrate to because there's water, there's fish to eat, and birds fly in a pattern. They fly south for the winter, south for winter, and north for the summer. So they're on this pattern, and you see that with most animals like whales and fish and all that. So California just has an abundance of huge river systems. If you ever driven up the state, you see these huge, because we have such a unique topography. We have the central basin or the Central Valley where there's mountains on both sides. You go up north to where you have a totally different climate north of Sacramento. So when we take a look into the Feather River, the American River, San Joaquin River, the Mojave River, Santa Ana River, we have an abundance of rivers. I kind of showed that in the first slide. I think it's next. No, I forgot to add it. So, but important to note, Sacramento and San Joaquin River drain 37% of the state, which whole stretches have been dewatered. 60% of the San Joaquin, 60 miles of the San Joaquin, is being taken for agriculture. If you guys have driven through the Central Valley, you guys know crops. It's one of the most fertile land. We kind of talked about this last week. It's one of the Mediterranean climates to where you can grow these rare crops and year round almost. I mean, they essentially did not have a winter this year. So today, San Joaquin River is dewatered, currently being restored to allow salmon runs. So you're starting to see more environmental protections and laws come in and protect those fish and wildlife species. Let's go. So another unique feature, before this is all kind of the precursor before we dive into groundwater, and the groundwater is where it really gets interesting. So historical features, originally we had more than 5 million acres of wetlands across Central Valley because no one was damming up the river, diverting it for floods or anything like that. But once humans came in and started adding, building aqueducts, having crops, the need to grow crops and everything like that. Now today, approximately 350,000 marshes remain. Most of them are estuaries. If you guys have driven on the coast down to San Diego to mid California, you'll see that a lot of the salt marshes are damaged or gone, or they're just being used. I think last time I saw one of the estuaries, it was a dog park. People are just letting their dogs in there. So humans are definitely having an impact on that. So, and if you're wanting, ancient lakes, we kind of talked about the ones close to here, and wetlands. A good example of a wetland would be the delta. You have all these rivers flowing in. You have seawater coming in that's kind of affecting the salinity of the water, but you also have the water pushing out into the ocean, and that there's a fine line to where we pump water out for the State Water Project, and that's a perfect example of what a wetland would be. You have fish, you have birds, you have crops, you have humans. That would be a very good example of what a typical wetland would look like. Like I said, we have wild and scenic rivers. If you guys don't know what this is Deep Creek. You can see part of a picture up here taken off of Google Earth. Down here we have Silverwood's arroyo toad. So the arroyo toad mates, I don't know when it mates, but it's active. The only time it's not active is between October and February. So if Mojave Water Agency wants to release water from Silverwood, so the State Water Project goes into Silverwood, if we want to recharge areas in West Fork and in the upper reaches of the Mojave River, we can only recharge during those certain months when they're in hibernation. And that's according to environmental laws and just restrictions based on their mating and their season of moving around. So that toad stops us from recharging water 8 months out of the year. So it's a huge thing. If you're kind of like, oh, it's just these birds and these fish, well, that toad is really inhibiting a lot of what we can do, which is rightfully so. I mean, we shouldn't come in here and destroy all the animal species and expect them to adhere to what an agency wants. If that were the case, we wouldn't have the Endangered Species Act, or and we'd probably have a lot less wildlife in general. So we talked about Sacramento Delta. It's one of the largest on the West Coast. People use it for one. They make levees to hold back the flow of the rivers and seawater intrusion. So if you've ever been up there, there's huge, just sand, dirt levees that are holding back this flows. And they basically, there's islands that you kind of saw in that one picture backing up right there. This is a perfect example. But on some of these islands, they create areas where